Welcome everyone to the monthly meeting of Third Act Sacramento. We're a chapter of Third Act, which many of you know is a national organization of mostly people over 60 who work together to protect the climate and democracy. I am Diana Cassidy. I'm the facilitator of the group. We're an all-volunteer organization. And let's see. So I think we have a few people who just joined us. If you can't see the agenda, which I put in the chat, just let me know in the chat and I'll repost it. So I'm speaking from Nisenan territory near downtown Sacramento, and I think a lot of you are from in the area, so welcome. Our monthly general meetings have the same structure, more or less. We meet with a formal agenda for about an hour, and often we're very fortunate to have guest speakers who address the topics that are of interest to our organization, which, as I mentioned, protecting the climate and democracy. And then we have announcements. They're from the teams that really constitute the heart of Third Act. And while I'm talking, I'm going to post the agenda one more time. Let's see. And while these general meetings are a great way to kind of learn what we're up to, the real action happens on our various teams. So we have the team leaders make announcements towards the end of the meeting, and you can get involved in things like the demonstration I talked about today, or the various activities you'll hear about later. And then the last half an hour, some people have to go, but some people like that less scheduled part of the meeting, and we call it the after party. So we're going to try something new and have a different host each month for the after party. And this month it's Mishi Pettit. So yay, Mishi. Thank you so much for doing that. So before I introduce our guest speakers, I'm going to just share a little bit of good news with you, because that's what I like to do, is try to counter in some small way the many bad news articles I end up reading and on the web and in newspapers and so on. So the good news for tonight comes out of Bakersfield, and we learned from our friends from the Oil and Gas Action Network about 6 weeks ago or so that there was a very important lawsuit happening in Kern County that could have a tremendous impact on permitting hundreds, if not thousands, of new oil wells. And so I contacted OGAN is their acronym. I contacted Alonka at OGAN and said, hey, do you want to speak to our group? Do you need us at a demonstration, or do you need us to write letters, or how can we help? And she just wrote the shortest email that I think I've ever received, and it was, we won. And so the story is a tiny bit longer than that, in that here's what they won. Kern County, the appeals court found that Kern County was illegally expediting permits and not sufficiently protecting farmers from primarily from abandoned oil wells. And there are about 28,000, it's estimated, 28,000 abandoned oil wells in Kern County alone. Wow. And it was stunning to me. I've been reading the local news, and I'm really sorry that this story wasn't covered outside of Kern County. But that's the miracle of the web, that we can learn what's happening down there. So in addition, the appeals court ruled that Kern County must stop permitting of any new wells until these abandoned wells are taken care of. And as I said, there are about 28,000 wells in the county. So it could be years before any new wells are permitted in Kern. So it's a huge win for agriculture. It was actually a farm manager who instituted the original lawsuit, because acres of their farm were being taken up by these abandoned wells. But it's a big win for everyone in Kern, who are being affected by poor air quality and dangerous jobs and so on. So yay, Kern.
Really?
So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce our guest speakers from Indivisible Sacramento. The theme for tonight, I forgot to mention, was Get Out the Vote, and that's something that Third Act's very involved in this year because this is a pivotal election year, as many of you know. And so we're honored to have Ellen Chapman and Haru Seki address us about their work in Congressional District 13. So Ellen and Haru, take it away, and you have screen sharing privileges.
Terrific. Thank you. So looks like Haru isn't here yet, but that's fine. I'll just forge ahead. So thank you so much for asking me to speak tonight. I'm Ellen Chapman. I'm on the steering committee at Indivisible Sacramento. And I just want to say how much I admire your organization and the work you do. It's so concrete and hands-on and practical. Really a model for us all. So thank you for the work that you do. I'm gonna first of all, before I screen share anything, I'm gonna put in the chat. Let's see, I'm gonna try to put in the chat to everyone a link to if you go to the link I just put in, that's a document that has all of the links that I'm going to be talking about, all of the events that we do. Everything is on that one document, so we don't have to keep dropping things into the chat. So if you click on that link, there's live links in there to get you to all the things that I'm talking about. So that said, let's see if I can screen share and from beginning. Yes, great. Okay, so there's Indivisible Sacramento. That's us. Who we are. I know that most of what you would like to hear from me is our work in CA13 and our Get Out the Vote, but very quickly, just in case anybody here isn't familiar with Indivisible, the national organization started in 2016 with something called the Indivisible Guide, which was just a Google Doc. So there were, after Donald Trump was elected, these two former congressional staff people, Ezra Levin and Leah Greenberg, said, hey, people need to know that even though we've lost Congress and this monster's in the White House, people are not without power. So they did this document about how to communicate effectively with your elected officials, how to make what you say count, how to make it public. And that's all it was going to be. But it very quickly, there was such a response to it that it very quickly grew into to a national organization. And so now Indivisible National is a grassroots movement. And there's thousands of local chapters, and their mission is to elect progressive leaders and defeat the Trump agenda, whatever that might look like at the time. And our organization is one of the autonomous chapters of that national organization. So we get resources from national and they help us with fundraising, but we pretty much decide what our agenda is. So what we do at the moment, we've done different things throughout the years, but at the moment we are working to elect Democrats up and down the ballot. That is our reason for being at the moment. But we also try to support and inform our progressive community. So we have meetings every month. They alternate between having speakers, like formal speakers, and then on off months, we go to Oak Park Brewery and just write a few postcards, have dinner together, have a couple of beers, And we also communicate with our our members through a website and newsletter, and just try to keep people informed about what's going on and what their opportunities are. We also have, there's an arm of all of the California Indivisibles that's called California State Strong, and they lobby at the state level for progressive legislation. So every election cycle. They choose the priority bills they're interested in. Many of them, by the way, the most active of the work groups is the environmental work group. And then they go to the state capitol and actively lobby for, occasionally against, certain legislation. And the other thing we do is we partner with organizations like Third Act and Sister District and Field Team 6 to get things done and help each other out. So I think the real reason you're interested in hearing from me today is to talk about California 13. So it is indivisible identified, or there's 18 districts in the, well, 17 now that we got rid of George Santos, but 18 districts in the country that are represented by Republicans in districts that Biden won in 2020. So these are considered flippable districts, and there's, I think, 5, maybe 6, at least 5 in California. So we decided to adopt CA 13 as our adopted district. In the past, sometimes we've spread ourselves too thin, so we decided we're just going to put all our eggs in this basket and get this district flipped blue in 2024. We chose this one for proximity, primarily. The district runs from up at the uppermost tip, Lathrop, and down in the south, it goes to Coalinga. But Lathrop, where we're doing most of our work, is less than an hour's drive away, so it's pretty easy to get there. The district is majority Hispanic, and it's ranked by Cook Political as a toss-up, but the registration leans Democratic. So it's a really good bet for us for this cycle. The incumbent is Republican John Duarte, and the Democratic challenger is Adam Gray. And here's the heartbreaker. Gray and Duarte faced off in 2022, and Gray lost by 564 votes. So if you think that every vote doesn't count, just look at this race and you know they do. That's statistically nothing, 564 votes. So the man himself, Adam Gray, he is a moderate Democrat. He's not the progressive that you would normally associate with Indivisible SAC, but he is a good fit for the district. He served in the state assembly for 10 years representing the area. And he's a local guy. He's raised in Merced, he lives there. He teaches at UC Merced now. And the incumbent, Duarte, doesn't even live in the district. So it's, this is Adam Gray really is the better fit for the district. His signature issues are when he was in the assembly, he was concerned with the doctor shortage in the Central Valley. So he helped get funding for the medical school at UC Merced. He is an agriculture, obviously it's a big agricultural area, so water rights are on his list. So he is a moderate Democrat. He tends to work across the aisle a lot. He's very involved and interested in agricultural issues, and he's a good fit for the district. And I will tell you that he's not a guy that normally I'd be super excited about, even though strategically you just need Democrats, whoever they are. But at these, a couple of the canvases that I've been at, he comes to them. He shows up and talks to the canvassers and gets to know people. And having met him and chatted with him a couple of times, I feel good about it. Like that, I think he is authentically interested in representing this district. So that's one good thing about canvassing is you often get to meet the candidates and get a human read on them. So how are we going to flip this district blue? The first thing that we are doing that Indivisible Sacramento is actively doing is we're registering likely Democrats to vote. It is, this should probably be a blue district, and if we got everybody registered, it would be. So the first thing we're doing is a large postcard campaign where we're coordinating with Field Team 6. So we have committed to sending 20,000 postcards into the district. to register likely Democrats. So Field Team 6 has the capacity to deal with big data, and they can figure out from who is likely to vote Democratic, and we are contacting them. We're focusing on women, so we have a message on our postcard about reproductive rights, and then there is a QR code on the postcard where they can go to register right then. So that's 20,000. We're halfway done with that. We just started our third round of that high volume postcard campaign. We're also doing in-person Democratic registration, especially at Modesto Junior College and at UC Merced. And again, this is done the Field Team 6 way, which if you're not familiar with them, it's highly partisan. We're not registering Republicans. You show up wearing your Democrats Make the World Better t-shirts and say, hi, we're registering Democrats today. So we're really very, if a Republican wants to register, you can give them the form, but it's very Democrat oriented voter registration. We are also canvassing for Adam Gray. In a couple of places, we are mostly canvassing in Lathrop with the California Democratic Party organized. But there are some other canvases that I'll give you some links for as well. And we're also phone banking for Adam Gray. Indivisible YOLO has been very active with the Bay Area Coalition there. And so they have phone banks running every week that you can get involved in. The other thing about canvassing for Adam Gray, I'll just say this, the other person that I've met in Lathrop canvassing is a guy named Sonny Dollywall, who is the mayor of Lathrop. And he's been the mayor for 6 terms or something, and he is now running for County Board of Supervisors. And when you go out and canvass and you say, I'm canvassing for Adam Gray, blah, 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 and I'm also canvassing for Sonny Dollywall, you will almost to a person, they'll say, oh, Mayor Sonny, I like him. He helped me, whatever. And so when I went back, I found Mr. Dollywall and I said, hey, you're really popular with your constituents. What's the trick? And he's like, well, I give him my cell phone number. He's just like super accessible. So again, canvassing gives you an opportunity to meet some of the candidates. And I don't know, just my faith in public service of public officials. I don't know. You meet a guy like that, it makes you feel good about what you're doing. So this is the document that the link that I put in the chat will bring you to this document with live. Hopefully you guys have all been able to access that. If not, you can tell me in a minute. So these are live links to a lot of things that we have going on. So first of all, if you're interested, our monthly meeting is this week on Wednesday, and we have a speaker this month. So we're meeting at CR2, and we'll be hearing from Fabrizio Sasso, who's the executive director at Sacramento Central Labor Council, and he's going to talk about Joe Biden as the most pro-labor president in a generation, if not ever. So he's going to talk about organized labor and Joe Biden and what that looks like going forward. We maintain a website. So there's a link there to our website where you can see on an ongoing basis what's going on. We have a bi-weekly, meaning every other week, newsletter, a link tree. Another thing that we do is on the first and second Sundays of every month, we run a postcard party or a postcard event at Oak Park Brewing Company. And this has turned out to be actually a very powerful thing. They aren't necessarily writing postcards into California 13, but they are doing a lot of cards from Activate America, different campaigns. But it's a good opportunity to just spend some time with other progressives, write some postcards, talk to people, see what's out there, what's to do. Then our postcard team, the high volume postcard project that I told you about is one where people are signing up for a minimum of 90 cards. I deliver them to you, you write them, I pick them up. We're clocking through a lot of cards very quickly. So if you're interested in that, joining that team where you're writing a lot of cards quickly, you can email me. I've put my email address there, and I'll give you more information. In order to do this, you need to live in the Sacramento or Folsom Carmichael area, because we are physically bringing the postcards to you and picking them up. And so it needs to be, I work with a partner who's out in Folsom, so it needs to be driving distance for us. This is a system we figured out during the pandemic, deliver and pick up. And what we found out was that we could do so much more in terms of volume when we make it super easy for you to get the cards and whatever. So we've continued with that structure. Text banking. We used to have a really active text banking team, and that team is less active as an organized group, but there is still, hello? Did I hear something? Okay. There is still opportunity to get trained as a text banker with Movement Labs. So this is a link to Movement Labs. And sorry, I got distracted by something. And they're a group that does text banking for a variety of progressive organizations. And once you're trained with them, if you want to branch out and do other text banking, like for the Biden team, you can contact me and I'll put you in touch with Susan Cooper, who is our text bank guru, and she will help you with that. So then resources for California 13. Here's the link for going and doing in-person voter registration at those two colleges. There's Indivisible YOLO. It has been extremely active working in CA 13, and they're working with the Bay Area Coalition as well. So they have a link tree with all of their activities. There is a phone bank for CA 13 with YOLO. Here's the sign up. Here's the next is the sign up for the Canvas in Lathrop. That's through KDEM, and we also help organize that. And then the last item on there is if you're interested in canvassing, but you haven't done it, or you're just kind of anxious about it or whatever, there's a weekly Zoom training that is done by YOLO, Indivisible YOLO, that you could do just to kind of get your feet wet, see if that's for you. So anyway, I'm going to stop sharing and see if there's any questions. But those are the sort of what we've got going on in the district. So did anybody have any questions or comments? And I think Haru's here now. Haru, did I miss anything?
No, I think you got pretty much everything. I'm sorry for being tardy. That was a pretty extensive list. Sounds like you got everything.
Okay, so yeah, there's a lot going on, and there's more than that even if you go on Mobilize, if you're just interested in being in CA 13. But we've decided our main things are these postcard campaigns, the in-person voter registration, the in-person canvassing, and the phone banks. Like, we feel like that's a pretty, we're kind of hitting it from all angles, reaching out to voters in that district. And we really do believe we're going to flip it.
Any questions for Ellen?
I saw a question in the chat.
Yeah, Pat.
Pat. Hey, Pat, how are you?
Hi, Pat, our friend.
Hello. Sorry you can't see me. I'm having some visual problems. But my question for both of you is, has there been current research or information about the effectiveness of postcarding versus phone banking versus canvassing versus texting?
Well, I do believe I'll go first then, Howard. I think it is as it always was, that the kind of the gold standard for voter outreach is canvassing, because you're talking to a real person face to face, right? Then the next thing statistically is phone banking, and probably then probably postcarding, then texting, but I'm not sure. I don't have the numbers on that, but I do know that consistently canvassing is ranked #1. Now, it's a numbers thing. Though you've done a lot of texting, Pat, you know it's a numbers game, right? It's how many people you're able to reach out to. Like if you canvass, many people aren't going to answer the door. Sometimes you have a great day and, you know, half the people answer the door. Sometimes not. Phone banking, same thing. You can sit for an hour and, you know, dial numbers or have numbers dialed on the, you know, the auto dial and only talk to 1 or 2 people. So it just depends. So I don't have any statistics for you. And of course, it's very hard to measure with the postcarding. Because at the end of the day, if you ask people why did they register or why did they vote, I'm not sure they're gonna necessarily tell you which of those touches, you know, was it the phone banker, was it the text, or was it the postcard that put them over the edge? But as much voter outreach as possible is all I know that works. Anything from you, Hara? Do you know anything on that?
Unfortunately, I'm sorry, I don't have any numbers for you. It sounds like Lori might have some numbers in the chat. That was a message. I will just say that the most powerful thing is the thing you can do, the thing that you actually can get to. And if you can get to a once a month postcard thing at Oak Park Brewery, because it's around the corner from your house and you can always go to that, do that. If you can get to a Lathrop canvas, yeah, come to those, because those are, I definitely feel when we go to those, you know, door-to-door canvases, you can definitely feel, you know, in an immediate and visceral sense, the reaction from the public, because you actually talk to people. This early in the year, you're actually getting people who are not tired of you yet. That will be less true later on. You have more interesting conversations earlier in the year. Definitely anything that you can get yourself to go to. And then I'm curious to know what Lori has to say. Somebody said in the chat that she has something information-wise.
I'm not sure what Lori Faith was talking about, but if it's me, I really don't have numbers off the top of my head, so I'm sorry.
I really think it's actually more about the numbers that you personally can get to. If you can get yourself to go to one thing above another and you have to pick between the two, pick the one that you can go to more regularly or that you can sustain. But, you know, you can do a little bit of everything. I go to canvases when I can. You know, postcards are always great. Oftentimes I like to go to the Oak Park Brewery postcards because it's I don't have to, you know, when I take home a stack from Ellen, I feel a lot of pressure to like finish it, which you do. You do have to finish those. You have to get them on time, and she will be coming to pick them up. So sometimes that makes me nervous. So I go to Oak Park Brewery.
Be coming.
Yeah, she will be coming. But sometimes that's actually, I've heard other people, some of my friends who don't want to go in person to Oak Park Brewery say that they like having the stack at home because they can do them while they're like watching TV or whatever. I generally, that's not the success motivator for me, but if it is for you, do that.
So I think it looks like we have 2 hands up. So if we could take a question from Carol, then Mishi, and then we'll need to move on to the next agenda item. But Carol, you're on mute.
Of course, thank you. My first question is almost a suggestion, and that is, have you tried working at what we call tabling, where you go to farmers markets or organized celebrations at parks and find people in a open venue where they're not feeling pressured. It's not at their home, but you have an opportunity to talk to people on a one-on-one basis. I mention that as almost a suggestion because it's been, I think, a very successful tactic for
We,
us.
we have done that certainly, both in recruiting for Indivisible, but more specifically for voter registration. And to some extent, if you were to go to those voter registration events at Modesto Junior College and UC Merced, it's that kind of structure. You
Yeah.
are basically tabling for voter registration at those places. And we like to target those colleges because we do want to reach out and get young people. It's a good source of likely progressive voters, and we do want to get young people, signed up and voting as ASAP. But yeah.
And I apologize for making this a double question, but it is. Quickly, tell me a little bit about your process for deciding about strategic or community partnerships.
Well, Haru can address this too. Largely, what we have found is amongst the progressive groups in Sacramento, like, for example, I see a lot of familiar faces in this group. So what we find is there's a lot of overlap. So we often end up partnering with the groups where we just know people, right? Where we know what's going on.
Yeah.
So that's been the case with Sister District and YOLO, and frankly with Third Act as well. It's been sort of through networking, sort of that progressive network. It's not a formal, for us, it's not a formal process. Haru, anything?
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I would just reiterate that what you partner up with the people that you kind of run into and that most of the time somebody approaches us or we need something like Ellen, you get a lot of that material from, am I wrong in saying Field Team 6? No.
Field Team 6. Mm-hmm.
Field Team 6. They have they have things we want. And so, I don't know if we would call them a partner. I guess we would call them a partner. We don't have
we're a partner with
Ellen said, we don't have a formal
because
structure,
we're
so
doing this
yeah.
This large scale voter registration campaign with them. We're working hand in hand with them on that.
Right. So either someone comes to us or we go to someone that has something that we want. And basically everybody here has something that we want, which is we want to join us. This is the year for voter registration and doing direct, that kind of actions. And I'm really glad that you guys are all here and that you invited us.
Thanks. So one last question for Mishi.
I'm just wondering how, it's lovely to meet you too, how second language interacts with what you do. Do you find you need people in the phone calling and the canvassing who perhaps speak Spanish or any other language for that matter?
Yeah, so I can answer that directly. Yes. And like at this Lathrop canvas, last month when I was at the canvas, they had turfs cut specifically if they had anyone that was fluent in Spanish. And it's a district with it's a majority Hispanic district, so you do run into a lot of Spanish speakers. So anyone who is fluent in Spanish is worth their weight in gold in all of these. It'll be true in phone banking, it'll be true in canvassing. And although the particular campaign I'm doing right now is not targeted toward Spanish speakers, there are postcard campaigns, obviously, that are targeted to Spanish speakers. So
okay.
yes.
That's, curious now. Okay, thanks.
Thanks
you.
you.
For the work you do.
Well,
Yeah, and thank you, Ellen and Haru. It was an incredible presentation, and thank you so much for joining us tonight.
thank you for having us.
Yeah, so you're welcome to stay or not. It's up to you. But we're going to move on and actually talk about Third Act's plans for Get Out the Vote. They're very nascent, but I'm going to turn it over to Barbara and Karen to tell us about their plans for the new Get Out the Vote team.
Well, Karen and I talked, and we decided that I'll kick it off, and then Karen will follow up with more information or corrections or omissions that I might have got or skipped over. So I think the best place to start is by thinking about what is the general approach that we have been considering. And we're both new to this, so, we're still getting our legs underneath us, so to speak. But what we're thinking that would make sense is to do a general get out the vote effort for the presidential campaign, and then select specific local districts, either within California, such as 13, although it seems like there's an awful lot of people who are already focusing on that, and maybe our time and effort would be better spent elsewhere. That's to be decided, or to consider some of the districts in Nevada. We're the closest here in Sacramento to Nevada, to actually reach out to them and potentially do canvassing there. So we'd like to balance the work with both a national focus as well as a local focus for relevant districts. So how we're thinking of accomplishing this, I think it was you, Mish, that made this suggestion, but maybe I'm wrong on that. But the idea that someone suggested, I'll say, was to form neighborhood hubs. So like there's Elk Grove, that's close to where I live, Folsom, Roseville, Midtown, East Sac, Land Park, whatever, all the different neighborhoods in the region, to form local community groups there that would once a month or every other month, if once a month was too much, get together and do postcards or phone banking, and potentially also canvassing should they decide to do that. That would be a good way to involve people. We have a pretty large distribution list, so we could reach out to all these people and they could find relevant work in their community, similar along the lines about what you folks from Indivisible were talking about, where by you driving around facilitating, dropping off and picking up the postcards, that got more people involved. So that would be number one. And then if people preferred not to work in that mechanism, we put together a list of a whole bunch of organizations, I don't remember the number, 10 or 15, that are doing various voter-related, candidate-related efforts. And we have it on our web, on Google Drive, and I don't know if it ever got mailed out individually or not. I have to check on that, but it's at least on the Google Drive. And I'm wondering if maybe, Diana, if you could drop in the chat the link to that so people would have it handy who are on the call. That describes what the orientation of each of the groups is, the kind of outreach they're doing, and how to plug in, what is their website. So if people prefer to work individually or maybe with a friend and have a particular liking to one or another group, they can do that as well. So to coordinate these efforts, as I said, we're looking to form these neighborhood groups. And there are two organizations in particular that we find to be very, very thoughtful and strategic in their work. And I'm not saying they're the only ones, but these are the two that sort of rose up in our review of the various options. And one is Activate America, which the National Third Act Group has partnered with. So through the Third Act website, you can reach Activate America materials. And their focus is at the national level and, to elect state and House and Senate Democrats. So it's some of the districts down south here, for example, would be a target of Activate America, the ones like California 13. The other effort is the Environmental Voter Project, and I'm just guessing people are probably quite not as familiar with that as Activate America or perhaps Field Team 6. I might be wrong about that, but that is a nonpartisan group in contrast to most of the other groups, which are quite partisan. This is a nonpartisan group, but what they do is they identify through their research low propensity voters environmental voters, people who list environmental issues at the top of their list of important issues at looking for, you know, towards this next election. And so they have identified these individuals, 15, they're focusing on 15 states, and they do very targeted behaviorally motivating people to vote. They figure if they can get these people to vote, people who either are not registered or rarely show up to the polls, they'll vote in a way that is favorable for the environment and all the things that we're talking about here. So they have done a bunch of research, and I've read some of it. I've been very impressed with it. I'll just say this one statistic because somebody asked about it earlier. They figured that they increase the voter turnout by 1.3% when they look at the voting rolls of individuals before their campaign, their postcard campaign, and after their postcard campaign. Now, I don't know if you can, there might be some confounders in there now that I'm thinking about it, but they make a systematic effort to sort that out. And that's tens of thousands of votes, which in many states would have been the difference between Biden and Trump. So even though the percentage is awfully small, the numbers are meaningful. So we're looking to find a way to plug in to that group for those that are interested in doing that. So for right now, we're looking to get these groups going, start writing postcards. We will, I guess there's going to be a new, as I understand it, local Third Act webpage, and we'd like to set up a page on that website so we can have information readily available for people, and then write up monthly articles for the newsletter with information about what's going on and how people might plug into, you know, various activities. And again, I just want to close by saying that while the small group of us might like one or two organizations, we want to facilitate the information getting out to everybody on what all the various options are, so people can make their own selection about who they'd like to work with. So Karen, can you want to fill in any additional?
Yeah, one thing that I'm still.
Correct me, did I misspeak or something?
Yeah, so Third Act has a list of 500 plus people that have shown interest on the mailing list, whatever. Diana, we still haven't heard about how we might access that list, and because I'm just wondering, we're talking about all these things that we want to do, but how are we actually going to get the message out? Yep. Is it by emailing those people? The website isn't up and running yet for Sacramento. So I just, you know, maybe we shouldn't be talking it here at this forum, but that's what, you know,
sure,
my thought. And the one thing I have for Ellen, a quick question, or for anyone here, is it important now to send out postcards for registering people as opposed to targeting specific candidates, or both at this point?
Well, I can answer that. We'll be doing both.
Okay.
We still believe that the voter registration, especially in a district like 13, where it was such a tight margin, we still think it's actually very effective. So, but later on, especially in the canvassing, the canvassing kind of has a structure of its own, right? Because that'll be, you know, as you get closer to the election, that's a get out the vote thing. But the postcarding, especially in California, because you can register right up to the election, right? We've decided that we think it's an effective, is still effective even at this juncture. So,
thanks.
Does anybody have any suggestions, comments, questions?
Ruth?
Yourself. Thank you for that. I know it's kind of overwhelming, sort of starting from scratch. Have you been working with the Third Act working group in the Bay Area that's got quite an active get out the vote committee? And I've been meaning to reach out and tell you guys about that, but I figured maybe you'd already reached out to them.
We have. We had a meeting with some folks from the Bay Area, and my recollection, one of the main things they were focusing on was California 13.
Yeah,
Can you
right.
Paul, any additional, or Diana, any additional details from that conversation we had with them?
No, that's it. They were really helpful. We're also in touch with the Nevada Third Act Working Group. So I think we're pretty well connected that way.
Is there something, was that Ruth that raised the question? Is there something in particular, Ruth, that you think is worth working with the Bay Area group on?
Not necessarily, no. We had that Third Act meeting, and they talked a lot about all the things they were doing, and I thought, oh, you guys are just getting started. It would probably be really helpful, so that you talking to them. They sound super organized, and so I always believe in not reinventing the wheel, and if I can fit myself in something that's already happening, it makes it easier.
But the thing is, we still need to organize an infrastructure here in Sacramento. And
Yeah.
once we have something organized, we can plug into all kinds of things. But the foundational work of getting that organized is sort of what we're working on right now.
Terrific.
So maybe one quick question from Carol, and then we need to hear some good news from Maureen. So Carol, what's on your mind?
And Linda, did you have a question too?
Oh, yeah, I just don't know how to put that little yellow hand up.
Oh, okay.
Reactions.
But I like the idea of neighborhood groups, and I'm willing to have regular events at my house, just inviting my huge list of friends who would like a one-time thing or more than that. So I like that idea.
Linda, could you put your phone number in the chat?
Okay.
Thank you. And then we'll pick it up and get in touch with you.
Wow, we have a host of a postcard party. Excellent. Carol, are you going to volunteer too, or did you have a different question?
I have a different question,
Okay.
and I may end up volunteering, who knows? But my question was, what kind of postcards are you using? Is it a blank postcard? Would it help to have any kind of decorative or identification on that postcard?
I'll be honest. Third Act, National Third Act, that's the postcard we have right there.
All right.
We bought it on Amazon. We think it's very upbeat and eye-catching. And Third Act National Organization also has a postcard, but it was a little dreary looking, frankly. And I just didn't think people were going to want to read it. So we found these on Amazon, and that's what we've used in our one effort so far. Do you have any suggestions?
Well, no, that is a lovely one. I don't disagree that that's a good choice. But if you needed something, wanted some help, that's kind of where I can maybe add some value. I can help put together a postcard, and we can put our heads together and make it look however we want.
Oh, you mean to design one?
And we can design one. I'd be happy
Oh.
to design one according to what you thought might be most helpful. And then we have to figure out how to get it printed, but sure.
Fantastic.
Get our logos on there, get our organization. It does our organization well to be seen around the world,
Yeah.
around the local neighborhoods.
Well, and what Ellen was mentioning too is it's nice to have like a QR code that people can plug into and get the website or where to, whatever information that might be useful to people.
And we'll have our website by the end of this week, so we're not that far away.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Can you put your phone number in the chat too?
I will. Thanks,
Thank you.
Barbara. Yeah.
Wow, I've been emailing back and forth with Barbara and Karen a little bit today, and one of the things I said was it is so hard to start something from scratch, and they're doing a great job, and it's so heartwarming to hear from Linda, that she's willing to host a party, and really great ideas from Ruth and Carol. So this is just great. This is great. Ellen, if it's really quick, I have to move on, but what's on your mind?
It's really quick. If you're designing a postcard, I've done that before. You want to work with a union house, work with firemen's printing, and feel free to contact me. I've designed postcards in the past, so if you want any information on that, I'm happy to share.
Thank you. All right. I haven't managed time quite as effectively as I have in past meetings, but we've had some great questions and input, so I value that a lot. So why don't we wrap up the formal part of the agenda with a report from Maureen about an incredibly important global campaign that Third Act Sacramento participated in, which was called Insure Our Future. So Maureen, can you update us?
Yeah, this is like completely different than what we've been talking about, but that's okay because we hit lots of different areas of this climate crisis. Yeah, Insure Our Future, I've spoken about it before on these calls. It's a global coalition, and they had a global week of action recently. And Third Act Sacramento was awesome. Raylene Ferris got together a postcard writing and digital action team. So for the whole term of the week of Global Week of Action, people were writing postcards and sending email to the CEOs of insurance companies. So just quickly, why insurance companies? When you look at why these fossil fuel companies operate, they need money, they need insurance, and they need permits. So insurance is a really important component. It's one of the pillars that keeps these dirty companies alive. So I feel a little off balance right now after all the voting stuff. I'm sorry. So I'm not going to go through what I've already talked about. I will put some things in the chat. What's really exciting is that there's a future here to this campaign. It wasn't just this global week of action. And this month, it's March 25th, and I'll send out the information. Insure Our Future is launching an insurance campaigning community of practice. And that's going to allow campaigners and activists across the world to work together in global solidarity and power to hold these insurance companies accountable for their part. And it's designed to be accessible for all those who are interested in insurance campaigning, but they're not experts. So it's a teaching platform and a way that we can all learn how to work together on this issue. In addition to that, the Bay Area Climate Finance Group has a subgroup now, and it's a Insure Our Future subgroup. And I really hope that some of the people in Sacramento will join us, and I'll send out more information on that as well. Around the exciting part, we had this awesome, we collaborated with youth in Sacramento, Fridays for Future, and young interns with 350 Sacramento, and just had this beautiful demonstration with the Capitol and the sun and the clouds behind us. And that just felt really, really good. And a lot of the people on this call were a part of that, the action. And that was in addition to an action we had in San Francisco. So this is really abbreviated, but I really hope that people that are interested in pursuing this, it's really important. Insurance companies are movable, and I think we can make a difference if we use our collective activism to target them. So that's it.
Thank you, Maureen. Yeah, actually the reason I joined Third Act was to try to shut down the oil companies, which seems ridiculous for an individual in Sacramento to be able to do that. But in these very strategic ways, by cutting off loans, by shaming insurers, from stopping to insure new oil drilling, oil wells and gas drilling facilities, we really can make a difference. And it's a tremendously important part of what Third Act does. So thank you, Maureen, for the update. I appreciate it. Let's see. So it is 6:59. I think normally we end with a call for volunteers and we sort of ran out of time. So if any of the team leads wants to stay for the after party, which as I mentioned, lasts from 7 to 7:30, I hope you can. And, for those of you who either want to get more involved in Third Act or just want to come to an action or see ways to get involved, I encourage you to maybe take a quick break and come back with a beverage. I would